Hello, everyone. I hope everyone is doing okay today. My name is Casey Reese, and I'm an educator here at Wonders of Wildlife National Museum and Aquarium. So last month, we had a mission called Bat Awareness, and this month we have an all-new mission with all new partners to learn about ocean appreciation. So the ocean is huge and it's super important to conserve it. So we are going to each week have new partners that talk about the animals of the ocean, how to preserve those animals and those ecosystems. So stay tuned every single week so you can learn something really awesome about your ocean. So since I work at an aquarium, I thought it would be really awesome if I shown you one of our exhibits that we have. So this here is our Out to Sea exhibit. It is a subtropic exhibit, and it has a roughly 202,000 gallons of water. If you keep your eye out beside me, you will find our southern ray. You can find our sand tiger shark right here in the back. And if you keep an eye out, you'll see a fast-moving shark, and that is our sand bar shark. So around that is also a lot of coral and other species of fish. And like I said, it is in that subtropic temperature. So for you to play the new mission, the Ocean Appreciation Mission, all you have to do is log on to www.wondersofwildlife.org/mission-conservation. And on this website, you will be able to find out how to get our app. So over here on the side, you will find Get the App, and that helps you download the Agents of Discovery app. So that app is needed for you to play this game. And if you scroll down, you'll need one more thing to play this game, and that is print images. So if you hit that download button, that will show you how to download the triggers to play the game. So the really fun thing about that is you can sit at your computer and you can play with your phone and play it at your computer, or you can print off these triggers, take it outside and do a really fun outdoor scavenger hunt. And with that, you'll get to learn about a lot of really awesome ocean themes. So ocean themes, all about the ocean, so ocean appreciation. And with that, we also have, if you go down to schedule of mission and activities, you can find Agent Salmon, Ocean Appreciation. Underneath that, we have an activity guide that we have created for you guys. So in that activity guide, you have a craft that you are able to do at home and an outside activity that you can do at home. So it's a lot of fun. So something else that we wanted to talk to you guys about is our partners that we have with us today. So if you keep scrolling down, you can actually find these two missions by Moana Pacifica, Ocean Icons, and World Oceans Day. So for the people that you will be hearing from today, these are their missions that they have created just for you. So Stan, I'm going to pass it over to you so you can tell everybody what you're here for today.
My name's Stan Wolfgram, and I'm from Moana Pacifica, which is a collective platform for Pacific people's voices in the global climate change conversation, especially concerning the Pacific Ocean, which we call Moana Pacifica, the biggest ocean in the world. So welcome today to the Cook Islands. We're in the middle of the South Pacific. We're on an island here called Rarotonga, and I'm here with Dr. Teina Rongo. So Dr. Teina Rongo is a marine biologist here in the Cook Islands. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Kia ora, everyone. I actually studied in the United States. I did most of my education in a territory of the US, Guam. And then for my PhD, I went to Florida at a university called Florida Institute of Technology in Melbourne. Great. So the intention was always to come home and work in an environment that I am trained in, which is a coral reef environment.
So you guys over there, Casey, you've got your aquarium. Well, this is our aquarium here. And so this is where we live, and this is where Dr. Teina Rongo works. So we're going to find out a little bit about what he does. So you want to tell us a little bit about your work?
For the last 20 years, I've been working on monitoring the marine environment, looking at the state of the marine environment, particularly around coral reefs. As we know that this environment is facing a lot of stress, particularly from climate change and also from just development in general. So part of what I do is to ensure that we know what is happening in this environment so we can make better informed decisions when deciding whether a project is worthy of doing, considering the impact that it might have on the marine environment. So I've been doing this for the last 20 years. And it was also part of my research for my PhD.
So you guys might have a picture there of what we call Taramia, which is a crown of thorn. And that's the work that Dr. Taramia is doing at the moment. Is that picture up? Yeah, so you can see that animal.
It's an animal. It's a starfish. These starfish are limited to tropical coral reef areas. They're natural in the marine environment, but in recent times, because of increased nutrients entering the marine environment, they have reached outbreak levels, and this is no good for a coral reef. We've had this problem since the 60s on the Great Barrier Reef and throughout the Pacific. It can kill about 90% of the coral reefs. And the same thing happened here in the Cook Islands.
And the reason why are the coral reefs important to us?
Coral reefs are important as we know that it gives, of course, it protects our coastal environment. Without these coral reefs that have been built over thousands of years, we wouldn't have the protection that we have from storm activities. It's been suggested that an area the reef experience in terms of force per square area, something similar to around 20 nuclear bombs, the same amount of force per square area. So you can imagine how strong these reefs are in terms of protecting us from storms, from large waves, from cyclones coming onto our shores. So not only that, they also provide shelter for our reef fish that we rely on as for food, among other things. And a lot of our legends, our culture, way of life is built around these coral reef ecosystems.
And people say that coral reefs, is it true, are the most complex ecosystems in the world?
It is the most complex ecosystem in the world, more so than the Amazon forest. And the most diverse as well.
So basically, we're talking about the number of species and basically millions of animals.
Yeah, millions of, some of them we still haven't been able to describe them.
And I suppose this is a little bit of our reef.
This is a brain coral. You can see it looks like a brain. They're part of what builds these reefs here. Here in the Cook Islands, we have over 144 species of corals. Some of them are still undescribed.
How long would you say this would take to grow, like just this size?
So this size, maybe you're looking at maybe 3 years. 3 years it took to grow to this size. The growth of corals vary depending on species. Some grow faster, but generally about 1 centimeter per year.
1 centimeter. And you would say that this is basically the building block of the coral reef.
Absolutely. They build the reef over thousands, so they would grow and die, and another one would grow on top of it, and then it keeps going, and it builds this very strong matrix of corals that build our reefs.
So those corals, they're the foundation for the most complex ecosystems in the world. And then in turn, what they do is they allow, I mean, I read something else about the fact that the majority of fish actually accumulate around reefs rather than sitting in the middle of the empty ocean.
Right. So the coral reef ecosystem, corals themselves provide some complexity on the reef. In a complex ecosystem, you need holes and crevices for fish to hide in. And so the corals provide that matrix for fish and other types of invertebrates, such as the starfish, to dwell in this very important ecosystem. This is a starfish. This is probably one of the most popular starfish in the Pacific. It's called a linkia, or the blue starfish. You find them in many lagoons around the Pacific. So it's widely distributed.
So we're really talking about the type of life that the coral reef sustains, the complexity of the life, but also the fact that in a lot of ways, the biomass, majority of biomass in our oceans actually comes or congregates or is generates from the reef itself. So the reef is very, very important. And that's just for us on the island. The reef also protects us from cyclones and high waves, etc. And obviously, the issues we're facing today are climate change, with the polar caps melting and the ocean levels rising, and then also
also the temperature. So these are factors that are influenced by what we call climate change. Temperatures are rising. These corals are dying as a result of it because they cannot handle temperature, especially elevated temperature. They have a very narrow range of tolerance in terms of temperature. A slight increase in temperature would stress them and they turn white. And that's one of the biggest problems that we are facing the world right now, and where coral reefs exist, is coral bleaching. And this comes from temperature stress. We're just picking up stuff from the water here.
We're picking up stuff from the water here as well. So, I mean, it's just to show you how
diverse,
how diverse the reef is, but how important the reef is to life in our ocean. But the Pacific Ocean, or the oceans for our planet, are we talk about the amount of oxygen that the ocean generates. So we talk about the ocean generating possibly up to every 3 breaths out of 4 actually comes out of the ocean. We talk about acidification of the ocean. If anything, we're talking about the state of the ocean is pretty bad at the moment. So the likes of Tina and what we do in our collective, it's about finding, you need to have the science, but you also need to include the science of people who have been living in these regions of the world for thousands of years and the knowledge that they've gathered. And together, using that science to educate people as far as decisions are made concerning our ocean, and especially educating our next generation. And if anything, educating the people that are making decisions for our next generation. You're doing that type of work?
Yeah, that's our organization. We'll give the link later on. We've been working with other groups, but the focus really is about indigenous issues and environmental focus. For us, because these reefs, like many countries in the Pacific, they host these important ecosystems. And if you want to protect these ecosystems, it's also important that you connect the people that live in these places to these ecosystems, because that's the only way for them to appreciate and value these resources, these ecosystems. So part of what we do is to help our people go back to the way they used to be in terms of going out fishing, encouraging them to fish, encouraging them to go into the mountain and hunt, because that's the only way we believe for them to value, even protect these resources moving forward, considering all the impacts that we are facing today. So that's part of what we do, and we focus a lot on the education on the kids, helping them connect to these environments through fishing, going out scuba diving, and a whole lot of outdoor activities.
I think we have we have a similar objective as organizations like WOW, and even with Agents of Discovery, about how can we get our kids back in there how can we get our people back into the land, and how can we get them to enjoy and experience the land? I used a couple of quotes. One of them is a quote from, we could say, Jacques Cousteau. We use his quote. His quote was, "You protect what you love." And the same version of that for us as Pacific people is, "I am the ocean is me." So it is who I am. It's part of my culture, my identity, and it's my past, present, and future. So that's a bit about the work that we do. And you guys got any questions on that side? If you have any questions, let us know.
Oh, I definitely have a question for you. So coral are very complex structures. Can you go into a little bit of detail about how coral are formed? So from polyps on up.
Okay, so thank you for the question. First of all, the environment has to be suitable for corals to settle. Once they find that suitable environment, they'll settle as a single polyp. And then over time, they grow, they divide, and they grow into a colony. So from an individual polyp to a colony of of a living coral. Genetically, they are of the same because they originate from the same polyp. So these corals establish on islands, and then they die over time for natural causes or bleaching or crown of thorn. But they provide that substrate for the next generation of corals to settle on. So as time goes, you build this matrix, this reef. That's how these reefs are built. When you go to an island, some of the islands here in Cook Island are raised atolls, and you can see a cross section of corals that have grown and died just by looking on the side, cross section of these reefs. So that's pretty much how these reefs are built.
You'll see for us, so behind us is a basalt rock, so it's volcanic. And so this island originally was formed by a volcanic eruption, and basically basalt pushing up from the ocean floor, and then it created a pinnacle above the ocean. Once it creates that pinnacle, then that's when the coral starts to establish around this piece of rock. We call that a fringing reef. And you've got to realize that the coral is actually an animal. So it's growing, and it grows around the reef. And it's, in some ways you could say, it's almost like, some people say it's one animal and a whole living animal that surrounds an island. And then through time, what will happen is the weight of the basalt island, it can sink. And as the island sinks, as it has done here, it still leaves a ring of coral on the outside. So you have the island will sink, and you'll have a ring of coral on the outside, and between them you have the lagoon. And that's what we have here as a lagoon. And I know that you guys have got a display around the Great Barrier Reef. And the Great Barrier Reef is an example that's going through major issues.
Right. Yeah. So here in the Cook Islands, we have, as Stan described, in terms of the formation of coral reefs, we have different states where you see how the islands are submerging and the reefs are coming up to keep up with light, because the corals are not only an animal, but inside its tissue are plants. So this is why they grow only in shallow environment, because they need the sun. And so in the Cook Islands, you have Rarotonga, where we are now, as probably the youngest island. So it has a fringing reef. And as you move to the older islands in the northern Cook Islands, you run into atolls, where in the middle is the mountain that have gone submerged, and you have the reefs coming up on the side. So you have a ring of islands with a deep lagoon. So within the Cook Islands, you can see how islands change over geological times.
Any other questions?
That was a really awesome question, or a really awesome answer to my question. Yeah, it's really interesting, because a lot of people don't realize that coral are living animals. They are living creatures. So when people talk about Great Barrier Reef, that's one of the most famous reef structures, they think it's either a plant or like dead sedimentary rock sometimes people think, but no, they are living structures and they have that symbiotic relationship. So they grow and live off of each other, which is super interesting. And a lot of people, for you, so just so you know at home, Great Barrier Reef is actually the largest living structure in the entire world. It's so big that you can look from outer space, astronauts in outer space can look down and actually physically see that living coral reef structure. So a lot of people just don't understand, or don't know at least, and that's what we're here to do, is to tell everybody, yeah, the coral are living, they are animals, they are invertebrates. So yeah, no, thank you guys so much. I haven't, let me look and see if we have any
questions.
Oh, okay. I have a question from Facebook. What can be done about the sea stars issues harming the coral?
Okay, we were just going to cover that. Thank you for bringing that up. This is actually the issue that we are facing here on this on Rarotonga now, that our reefs are dying because of this starfish, this crown of thorn. It's an outbreak. These starfish are natural in the marine environment, but in low numbers. They're important because they maintain a healthy diversity of corals. So they basically keep keep in check a balance in terms of diversity among corals. Because if you don't have these guys around, there's a possibility that you would have a reef dominated by a few species of corals. So they have a role to play. But in recent times, because of increased nutrients entering the marine environment, they are promoting the growth of these starfish in terms of recruiting, particularly at the early stage of their life cycle. So they would spawn and they'll float in the marine environment in the ocean, and they rely on phytoplankton and also seaweed. As we know, seaweed are plants that rely on nutrients, such as like fertilizers on land in terms of plants. So the amount of, you have a lot of nutrients entering the marine environment, they would do well. So in recent times, through developments, tourism in some places, where you have a contribution of high nutrient levels in the marine environment, these starfish are in outbreak situations. So it's not natural. So here in Rarotonga, we're having an outbreak situation. And so a small group from our organization, volunteers and some of the businesses on the island have got together to eradicate this starfish from our reefs. We've experienced an outbreak twice in the past. Both of them decimated the reefs. The second outbreak was followed by a problem that pushed people away from the reef, which is the fish poisoning. You might have heard of Ciguatera fish poisoning. It's a type of marine intoxication that can kill people. So some people have died from consuming reef fish. So within a period of 20 years, people here in the Cook Island basically shifted away from using the reef resources because of the fear of Ciguatera poisoning. So part of the reason why we're so, why we think it's so important to get rid of this crown of thorn, it's because not only that we are saving the reef, but we are also preventing another situation where we cannot eat reef fish anymore. At the moment, our reefs have recovered and the incidence of fish poisoning have declined. So people are slowly going back to using the reef, going back to fishing.
So really, you know, as you can see, and from the conversation, you can tell how it's a complex situation because one ecosystem affects the next ecosystem, which affects the next ecosystem, which ultimately affects us as humans. And, you know, it will affect us at the end of the day. So Tina and his organization, I mean, what they're doing is they're getting together, they're providing a solution. And at the moment, they're manually going out there and picking these starfish off the reef.
Yeah, but it's through free diving. So we dive depths ranging from 14 meters to about 27 meters. Yeah, to collect these. But we also recently we've shifted towards scuba diving.
And the other
So
thing is,
are those sea stars, are they dangerous to handle?
They are very dangerous to handle. I've gotten pricked several times on my fingers. I can't move my fingers properly now, but they are venomous. They don't kill, but painful.
yeah, so it's a toxin.
It's a toxin. It's got some toxins in the spines, and they're designed. The spines are designed in a way that when it enters the tissue, it breaks in, and so that doesn't help. If you're the one getting pricked by the taramia.
And the other way that Dana's helping is obviously the research. So Dana's doing the research, and he's combining with other scientists as well, and they're putting together the research around the life cycle, etc., of this animal, so that they can better cope with any kind of outbreaks or anything like that. But I mean, the other thing is that they have a website, and if you guys don't mind, we could put a link up there on how you can support them. They take donations, etc., because it's a self-funded thing. So
volunteering. So a lot of the people that are working on this operation are volunteering. Actually, all of us are. We have our own day jobs, and we make time to do this because we see how important it is.
Yeah, it's all part of it. So you can join us there, Casey. Come on to the Rarotonga and you can help us. So anybody wants, come down.
Oh yeah, fly me out there and I'll be there. No, that sounds great. Well, thank you guys so much. Thank you, Stan. Thank you, Dr. Tana. You guys are so great, and I honestly have learned so much from the both of you. So with me today, we've talked a little bit about sea stars. We talked about coral. I wanted to go over just a little bit about what I know. It's not as much as Dr. Tana because he is a marine biologist. I can't keep up with that. But I myself have brought an artifact for you guys so you guys can see as well. So this here, I'm going to back up just so you guys can see all of it. I might disappear just a little bit, but this is a common sea star. Along with the coral reef, there's a common misconception that they are not living creatures. They are living creatures. They are animals. Both coral and sea stars are invertebrates. They are different types of invertebrates, but these sea stars are echinoderms. So they're called echinoderm. That is called it's meaning spiny skin. So as you can see right here, that this sea star here has spiny skin. So I'm just going to go over a little bit of basic anatomy. So these are all called their arms. So there are typically on the common sea stars 5 arms, but if they don't have 5 arms, don't worry because they do regenerate. So if one arm is gone, every single one of them have the exact same structures on the inside. So if one is gone, then it can regenerate and grow a whole new arm, which is pretty neat. So this side here is called the aboral side. And I'm going to flip it over to this side over here. And this is called the oral side. So this side is called the oral side because this is where the sea star's mouth is found. So on the back here, you can also find these spines on the back. And then in the creases here, I'm going to try and get a little bit closer. So in the creases here, you can find the tube feet. So something that's really awesome about sea stars is that they do not have a cardiovascular system, but they have a water vascular system. So it works kind of the same way as our cardiovascular system does. So for us, we have our heart that pumps blood down our body, but for these guys, they use water, and that water is used for them to eat, for them to go and move around, and for them to respirate or to breathe. So I'm going to go over one last really cool fact about these sea stars because we are running out of time, but these sea stars have 2 stomachs. So something that's cool about them is their 2 stomachs. So this here is their mouth, and on the inside of their mouth, they have a cardiac stomach. On top of that cardiac stomach, they have a pyloric stomach. So their mouths don't work the same way that we do, as well as our stomach. Their digestive system is just a little bit different. So when these guys are going to go and eat, they'll actually expel their stomach, their cardiac stomach, out of their mouth, and they'll go into a mussel or something that they're going to eat and expel their stomach out of their mouth into that mussel. And that mussel will make or the stomach will make the mussel turn into a soupy-like texture. And once that soupy-like texture is made, the stomach will absorb all of that soupy texture and suck their stomach back in, and that's how their digestive system starts. So it's very, very neat. So thank you guys so much for coming to this live. I appreciate you. We will have a live next week, so join us then. And I want to say thank you to all of our guests. We will see you next week. Thank you so much.